Is Zimbabwe a one-party state, or is it a multi-party democracy in name only? Today, in late 2025, if one were to ask the opposition party in Zimbabwe it would be a difficult question to answer. Unlike 10 years ago, when one would immediately say Movement for Democratic Change. Today is a different case entirely. In this video, we will dwell in detail on how ZANU-PF, from the very beginning, desired Zimbabwe to be a one-party state, and how they are now achieving this by destroying the opposition through intimidation and fostering internal fighting among their rivals. The ruling party has truly mastered the art of divide and conquer. Welcome to Peak World. If you're new, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. It is very hard to find a prominent businessman in Zimbabwe who is not a member or supporter of ZANU-PF, with figures like Strive Masiyiwa being exceptions due to his well-known disagreements with the government. There are many Zimbabwean business people who have made their fortunes outside the country because in Zimbabwe you need to toe the line. ZANU-PF is also endorsed by various religious groups, including African indigenous churches, Pentecostal, and charismatic movements. Even prophets support ZANU-PF. Artists and influencers likewise support the ruling party. If you are a journalist and speak negatively about the government, you can be arrested. Furthermore, Zimbabwe has one of the best intelligence agencies in Africa. For the past 40 years, Zimbabwe has been ruled by one party. While Zimbabwe is a peaceful nation, there has been chaos before and after every election since 1980. This is often because the ruling party treats the opposition party as an enemy instead of a political opponent. This approach, originating from ZANU-PF, was influenced by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP model. We will talk more about this influence in this video. Let me try to start from the beginning. The earliest settlement of the area now known as Zimbabwe goes back about 100,000 years. Bambandianalo is an archaeological site in present-day Zimbabwe, just north of the Limpopo River. Other archaeological landmarks are known as the Hill Complex, the Valley Complex, and the Great Enclosure. Since then, the area has been home to many great kingdoms and states, such as Great Zimbabwe, which is famous for its large stone structures. Other kingdoms include Mapungubwe, whose history makes it hard to tell the history of Zimbabwe without including what is today known as South Africa. The Mutapa Empire, which grew to cover territories in what are now Zimbabwe, southern Mozambique, and parts of Botswana, Malawi, and Zambia. The Rozvi Empire, and the Ndebele. The Ndebele are said to have arrived late according to the colonial history taught, but that is based on where the colonizers began recording our history. The history of Zimbabwe changed again around 1840 with the arrival of King Mzilikazi, one of the greatest military men after Shaka Zulu. He arrived, defeated many local clans, and made them his subjects. This made the colonization of Zimbabwe of a special type because the people today, known as the Shona, initially sought liberation from the Ndebele as well as the British. Just as in South Africa, where black people wanted to be liberated from the Afrikaners who arrived and settled before Britain later arrived and sought to colonize. The Ndebele people were therefore settlers in Zimbabwe, just as the Afrikaners were settling in South Africa. Mzilikazi came with his military prowess. After a few years, Mzilikazi's son, Lobengula, took the throne and collaborated with white people. His family had interacted with white people in South Africa, often fighting with Afrikaners, but maintaining a cordial relationship with English speakers. It was therefore understandable that when a British team, Francis Thompson, Charles Rudd, and Rochfort Maguire, came in 1888 to persuade him to grant them the right to dig for minerals in his territory, he was wary about entering into negotiations. Lobengula only agreed when his friend, Leander Starr Jameson, a qualified medical doctor who had once treated him for gout, proposed to secure money and weaponry for the Ndebele, in addition to a pledge that any people who came to dig would be considered subjects living in his kingdom. As part of this agreement, and at the insistence of the British, neither the Boers nor the Portuguese would be permitted to settle or gain concessions in Matabeleland. However, Lobengula was illiterate and unaware of how damaging this contract was to his country. He only found out the real terms of the contract he signed after his subjects did. After going to friendly English missionaries to confirm this rumor, Lobengula sent 2 emissaries to Queen Victoria, but this proved futile. Consequently, the Ndebele fought the British South Africa Company and were defeated. That is when Zimbabwe became a settler colony, as a new tribe was formed. The Rhodesians, mostly white, English-speaking descendants of British settlers, with smaller groups of Afrikaans, Greek, Portuguese, Irish, Italian, and Jewish origins. What they all had in common was the oppression of the black majority, just as in South Africa, where Afrikaners are not people from one nation but come from Dutch, German, French Huguenot, and smaller contributions from Flemish, Scandinavian, and other European groups. There were few leaders who tried to fight colonization until the 1940s, when Benjamin Barumbo and Joshua Nkomo began organizing via trade unions. The first fully fledged black political party in what is now Zimbabwe was the Southern Rhodesia African National Congress, SRANC, formed in 1957 by the merger of the City Youth League and remnants of an older ANC, led by Joshua Nkomo. It advocated for black majority rule before being banned in 1959, setting the stage for successor parties like the National Democratic Party, NDP, and ZAPU. By this time, the main anti-colonial movement was effectively a single party, but division caused a breakaway party called ZANU to be formed. Disgruntled ZAPU members, including Sithole, Mugabe, and Herbert Chitepo, broke away due to disagreements with Joshua Nkomo's approach. Initially, these figures were not taken seriously by the frontline states, who respected Joshua Nkomo until Mozambique allowed ZANU to establish a base. At this point, they had one common enemy: the Rhodesian regime. They once united under the banner of the United African National Council, UANC, but that alliance did not last. This division caused future enmity. The subsequent internal fighting was evident when the guerrilla forces of ZANLA and ZIPRA fought against the UANC government of Prime Minister Muzorewa, which began on June 1, 1979, normalizing black-on-black violence. Fast forward to the 1980 election. ZANU used soldiers to campaign for them in rural areas before the election, and rumors of a one-party state were already circulating. The challenge was one of leadership. Mugabe couldn't be led, as he saw himself as a national leader, while Nkomo couldn't be led by Robert Mugabe, as he was an older man. Mugabe won the election and invited Nkomo and his party into government, but this did not last long due to mutual mistrust. Nkomo was fired from government, accused of treason, and the subsequent conflict between the government and Nkomo's predominantly Ndebele supporters weakened the opposition in Zimbabwe. Consequently, in 1987, Joshua Nkomo signed the Unity Accord, allowing ZAPU to merge with ZANU. This effectively marked the death of the opposition in Zimbabwe. In the 1990 election, Edgar Takere tried and received almost 17% of the votes, while ZANU-PF received 83%. For a time, opposition parties were truly dead in Zimbabwe until the rise of a trade unionist named Morgan, who formed the Movement for Democratic Change, MDC. This movement became a thorn in the side of ZANU-PF, forcing the ruling party to understand what a true opposition party was. In the 2000 parliamentary election, the MDC received almost 47% and ZANU-PF received 48%. This was a great threat to the incumbent party. According to international observers, the elections were marred by extensive electoral fraud and voter intimidation. Political violence increased during the month of June. Again, presidential elections were held in Zimbabwe between March 9th and 11th, 2002. The elections were contested by the incumbent president, Robert Mugabe, and the Movement for Democratic Change leader, Morgan Tsvangirai. This time, Mugabe received 56% and Morgan received 41%, but these elections were not free and fair and were marred by widespread intimidation. The worst was the 2008 election, which was characterized by violence. No official results were announced for more than a month after the first round. The failure to release results was strongly criticized by the opposition Movement for Democratic Change, which unsuccessfully sought an order from the High Court to force their release. An independent projection placed its leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, in the lead, but without the majority needed to avoid a second round. The MDC declared that Tsvangirai won a narrow majority in the first round and initially refused to participate in any second round. This election resulted in a government of national unity where Mugabe remained president and Morgan was prime minister. The challenge of Zimbabwean politics is that it is very hard for people from different political parties to have a relationship. Even criticizing the government can lead to disappearance. This culture is mainly caused by the relationship between ZANU-PF and the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. ZANU-PF never wanted Zimbabwe to follow the Western model of democracy. In China, there is one party in charge of the state, and if you express dissent, you can disappear, much like Jack Ma, who was publicly absent after criticizing the CCP. China provided ZANU's military wing, ZANLA, with ideological support, material assistance, and military training. Prominent figures, including current President Emerson Mnangagwa and iconic commander Josiah Magama Tongogara, received this military and ideological training in China. Maoist concepts, CCP cadres drilled concepts like Mao Zedong's guerrilla tactics, the importance of peasant mobilization, the People's Army, and the People's War into ZANU cadres. This focus on rural support and mobilization is a key enduring element in ZANU-PF's approach to politics. For the 40 years of ZANU-PF rule, the country has had only two presidents, Robert Mugabe and E.D. Mnangagwa. This longevity in the top position makes the presidency extremely powerful. However, during this time, ZANU-PF continued weakening the opposition by dividing them. After the first split of the MDC, ZANU-PF continued to divide them by allegedly sending agents. After the death of Mugabe, new national political players arose: Emerson Dambudzo, E.D. Mnangagwa, and Nelson Chamisa of the MDC alliance. Chamisa got almost 45%, and Mnangagwa got 51.50%. After that election, the MDC alliance collapsed due to divisions, and the hand of ZANU-PF can be seen. Nelson Chamisa then went on to form the Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC, to compete against Mnangagwa in the 2023 election. Chamisa received 44.03%, while Mnangagwa received 52.60%. Chamisa resigned in January 2024, citing contamination and hijacking of the party, leaving it without a clear leader. Thus, ZANU-PF has infiltrated every institution in Zimbabwe. Today, if I were to ask who the opposition party leader in Zimbabwe is, it is a hard question to answer. In 2023, Xavier Kasukuwere tried run for presidential election, and he was banned because he was going to eat from ZANU-PF vote. The question Zimbabwe must now confront is simple. Is there still space for genuine political competition, or has the idea of a multi-party democracy already died? Thank you for watching Peak World. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more content that digs deeper into African politics and history. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious,